Guys, we just got this eviction notice and we gotta be kicked out here the weekend of our recordings. And everything all at once. Freaking help. I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. I am panicking. I've tried all I can and my phone. They sent me a crappy phone and it's gone. I need help, someone help me. I work my ass off trying to do as much as I can. I need G-Man. Can someone severely get me hold of G-Man? Cause I need him. I need someone in my life, cause I just don't know what to do. I need G-Man. Someone severely get me hold of G-Man. Cause I need him. I need someone in my life, cause I just don't know what to do. I say we just pack up the car as much as we can, and we just head out to Pennsylvania. There's nothing else we can do. We got no money, we got nothing, we just sell all this stuff. But we gotta get out of the house by this weekend. I need G-Man. Can someone severely get me hold of G-Man? Cause I need him. I need someone in my life, cause I just don't know what to do. It says he will be elected anytime. This is proof right here that the Democratic Party has done nothing to help anyone. The government has done nothing to help anyone. I'm gonna have a heart attack, I wanna die. I need G-Man, someone to get a hold of G-Man now. I need G-Man. Someone severely get me hold of G-Man. Cause I need him. I need someone in my life, cause I just don't know what to do. It says you will be evicted anytime. This is proof right here that the Democratic Party has done nothing to help anyone. The government has done nothing to help anyone. I'm gonna have a heart attack. I wanna die. I need G-Man, someone get a hold of G-Man now. I need G-Man. Can someone severely get me hold of G-Man? Cause I need him. I need someone in my life, cause I just don't know what to do. It's funny that a family will be on the street. It's funny that I don't have my friend to talk to. Do I need G-Man? Can someone severely get me a hold of G-Man? Cause I need him. I need someone in my life. Cause I just don't know what to do.
Stars. This is a damn disaster, and I know it. You better cover your mouth, honey. Ain't nobody trying to get sick over here. Shut up. You ain't got no damn kind of 95 mask? Shut up. Oh, my stars. He coughing up a damn storm in here. Shit. Ain't nobody trying to get sick. Oh, my stars. He ain't rap right. He ain't rap right. Oh, my stars. He ain't rip right now. You know what, sir? You make me really damn mad. You didn't have to come on the highway when you know good and damn well there's traffic there. Sir! Huh? Oh, now you don't want to answer me, bitch. Ah, my stash. I am so damn mad. Sorta mad. No trip, right? Sir, huh? You speak English? Lord? Then what the hell you doing picking me up for? Why you came on the highway when you know good and damn well it's bumping and bumping? How you know the traffic? Traffic no good. Because you got GPS in there. No, you got GPS in there. You know good and damn well you get away local. You don't know GPS in there? Hell, don't yell at me, Chuck. Oh, my stars. I am so damn mad at you. Yes, I am. And you want me $30 to sit in this bumper-to-bumper traffic in the grinning? No, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. You're a damn disaster right now. Oh, my stars. Oh, my stars. Yeah. Muster, where you from? From heaven. Well, you need to go back up there, bitch, because you don't know how to talk to people in the world.
Yeah, man.
Shut your ass. Oh, my stars. You know me? Mister! He's a disaster. He's a disaster. He's so bad. He don't even know. Oh, my stars. Mister, you was a bumper to bumble. You should have went local. You know damn better. Oh, my stars. Sir, how old is you? 75. Well, you need to go to bed. 75. Yes, I know it. You need to go to bed. You 75, too old to drive in traffic. And I know it. You need to take your ass to bed. Yeah, I know. You like to cuddle, sir? Hello? Don't bother to me. I'm not bothering you, yo bitch. I'm sitting in the back. I ain't saying shit. Do you like to cuddle? Are you gonna ignore me now? You don't hear well from your right ear? Oh, my staff! You's a damn disaster! I am so damn mad at you. I am mad at you, honey. When I called a taxi back, gonna tell the masses that you took me on a damn highway and waste my damn time!
Hello, everybody. Can, like, 50 of you just, like, stop watching me? You guys are giving me imposter syndrome, okay? I appreciate it. I'm kidding. I appreciate it. Hi, Destroying Icons. Hi, Isaiah2253. Hi, Bin Chickens. Hi, JCMX64. Hi, Area Madison. Hi, Corey MYT. Hi, Unicorn Girl 183. Wait, no, it's just 83. Hi, Eugene. Hi, Jesus Christ. Hi, Destroying Icons. Hi, Mandalorian. Hi, FDR Devotee. Hi, Ani. Hi, Steph. Hi, Vera LaDouche. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Apocalypse Punch. Hi, Spleen for Soul. And Keldosh, thank you so much for rating. I really appreciate it. Can somebody post Keldosh's link in the chat for me, please? Hi, Jesus Cow. Hi, Lily P. Hi, Emma Dilemma. Hi, Stream Elements. Hi, Alibus. Hi, Ben Chickens. I disliked and will lurk. Okay, thank you very much. Hi, Boo. How are you doing? How are you guys doing today? This is a very impromptu stream, and it's also going to be a short one. Okay, so I apologize if that's disappointing for anybody. Hi, Calypso. Hi, S-Jam's Itchy Bunky. Hi, Von Beardo. Hi, Sky's Burden. This is probably going to be a relatively short one. Hey, Rudolph, how you been? How have you been? Naughty Rudolph. Just a PSA, I am dual streaming on my Kick channel. It's kick.com/worst of the internet. If I know some of you guys have been into Kick lately and stuff, so if you want to watch on Kick, you're more than welcome to. Hi, Walking Queen. Hi, Rachel Tencent. Hi, Blaze. Hi, Screenshot This. Hi, Moss Society. Hey, Krista. All right, listen. Hey, Dusty with the good hair. Am I blocked? You want to be blocked? Is that what you're saying? Hey, Shadow Wolf Cub. Hi, Hussy Ain't Loyal Rumble. Hey, Cammy. Hey, Harley Zen. All right. I'm going to have to get on my soapbox today, and dare I say, morally grandstand, okay? Hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here, but hit the like button and all that great shit. And thank you for the Kick follows. I appreciate it. And I may not entirely pay a whole lot of attention to the chat, just because I kind of want to run through this quickly and go through this and then, you know, just say my thing and we'll get out of here. But I got to yell at some people. First and foremost, wait, hold on. I feel like my brain just melted. It's the same as, my Kick channel is the same as here. It's Worst of the Internet. Oh, I remember now. I'm sorry. So for those of you that noticed the stream when I initially posted it, I posted it with a thumbnail of DC Media Girl. Somebody told me, like, you should probably change that, okay? And I just wanted to say I apologize if that bothered anybody. The reason that I did that was simply because the only stream we're watching tonight is one from DC Media Girl, specifically about her case with Hussy, okay? So I just wanted to start with that, which is, I didn't mean any disrespect by that, and I apologize if anybody felt that I was trying to be shady or disrespectful by doing that. With that being said, I also don't want this stream to come off as an endorsement or defense of anybody in this, okay? I think you guys know how I am. I think everybody's fucking insane, except for me. I know I'm perfect, but, you know, I think everybody's fucking insane. And the fact that things even got to this point were kind of, like, crazy. And the problem is that I've noticed a lot of people, and I'm not going to name names except for one because you got called out for this today, Blazed. But I've noticed a lot of people running around with the words predator and pedophile with respect to Hussy. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I am going to say this much, that as long as I've looked at Hussy and looked at the things around him and what's going on, I don't believe that there is a shred of evidence that Hussy is a predator or a pedophile. And I want to be very clear on what you may be getting yourself into when you talk this way, when you use this type of rhetoric. Do not forget that the only reason I even started streaming this year is because of Carrie and Hussy pedo jacketing, okay? I'm going to call it out on all fucking sides at the end of the day. The fact of the matter is, when you do this and you say these things about Hussy, Hussy's not offended. Hussy's over there going, hell yeah, I got another lawsuit. Another chance to make some more money. That's why. You are simply handing him a rope and saying, go ahead and tie it up to the tree for me, please. So, to be very clear about this, like I said, I've never seen a shred of evidence that Hussy is in any way interested in anyone under the age of 18. With respect to the word predator, I understand that a lot of people will sit here and say, well, predatory, predation, whatever. In this context, it does not matter and it does not make a difference. Because Hussy's objective is not to win a lawsuit here. Hussy's objective is to get you to settle. And that's what I want to show you tonight. Because ultimately, I didn't want to do this stream because I figured, you know, whatever, let people do what they're going to do, I guess. But, you know, when I got down to it, I said, you know, I think it's at least worth it for me to fucking say something before more people give him more, number one, more ammunition, and number two, more victimhood points. Okay? Because you and I might see eye to eye on this subject, even if you agree with me in the totality of what I'm saying. What you don't seem to understand is there's a bunch of desperate old lonely women in his fucking chat that absolutely will believe whatever he's saying and see him as the entire victim in this, okay? And I want to be clear about it. I don't see Hussy as a victim in this situation. I see Hussy as somebody who deliberately goes out, antagonizes people to the point that they say something fucked up like that, and then the minute they do, he picks up the phone, because we all know Hussy can't stop making fucking phone calls. And he picks up the goddamn phone and he goes, oh my God, you gotta do something about this. don't let him get one over on you like this, okay? This is what I'm saying. Don't let him get one over on you. First, and y'all, I'm so nervous now. Stop it. Stop watching me. All right. First and foremost, I want to start off with the fact that this was the clip that came across my desk today.
Question: how does Blaze feel about Hussy saying he's going to sue her for saying she's a PDF file? He could try, like I said.
What? Wait, whoa! What?
Yeah.
I don't even think you called him a PD file.
She did, but you did.
Did I?
Oh, well, I didn't hear it.
But you took it back and said, no, I don't think he's that. I'm just upset or something like that. It was on your live.
They called me a freaking predator, so, like, again.
Yeah, you said he definitely has.
No, I wasn't referring to you. I meant, like, No, you didn't do anything, Blaze.
Hussy, are your little feelies hurt, bitch? Are your little feelies hurt? I am so sorry that
He's sitting and rotating.
That you could potentially be a PDF file because you're just so comfortable with calling everyone else that I just thought it was the end thing to do.
Right. Now, here's the thing. My understanding, Opalite, thank you for becoming a member. My understanding behind what happened, and I haven't watched these streams, I'm going off of word of mouth. And by the way, when we get into the lawsuits, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of things wrong, and I'm not going to mention this detail or that detail, whatever. If I get it generally right, I'll be satisfied, okay? If I'm just in the ballpark, I'll be satisfied, okay? But this clip, Blaze, if this is what I'm hearing is the apology, this is not gonna cut it. Not for fucking Hussy. And I just want to be clear. It's not lost on me that, again, the reason all of these streams from me started...
Because I will use your documents to cop out not to care about anyone else's. That you did something wrong by talking to a fucking minor.
That's right.
Okay, so no one. Then so's your husband for talking to a minor. What do you mean?
What are
minor?
you talking about?
I mean, I don't know why we're making this about this.
No,
if you don't believe that I'm a groomer. Do you believe I'm a groomer?
What are you
saying
about my
husband? Do you believe I'm a groomer? Because I don't think you.
I'm not here to say. Let me tell you something, Val. I don't know you.
Okay.
The fuck?
I don't know you, but I still don't think you held up a head.
Okay, well, I don't know you. I don't know you. Do I think what you did was weird as fuck? Yes. If I had a 17-year-old playing video games with a 27-year-old, I'd be very concerned.
Why?
Because...
What do you think's happening there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's
I don't want to know.
You can't just,
I don't want to know.
Angry at people for having accidentally ran into a minor on the internet.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know. If you listened to the story, you would know.
Okay.
And to be clear, Hussy will weasel his way through this shit by basically saying Val's a groomer. But Val, I don't know you. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you've done. Well, Hussy, I don't know you. I don't know what you've done. If that's kind of where we have to go with this, fine. Adopt his fucking rhetoric at this point, and then watch him try to throw it back in your face. However, here's my point. Even that may not be good enough from what you're going to be seeing tonight, okay? First and foremost, first, Glitter Snatch, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. First, I'm going to have to leak something, which I think I've leaked it before. I could be wrong. Press 1 if I've ever shown you the Stardust Discord that caused a bunch of controversy with Jessica, Messica, and Hecate, who decided to lie about what was in that Discord. Press 1 if I think I've shown this before. I could be wrong. So, Stardust has a Discord, and it is a private Discord, and in fact, I'm going to hide the member list, too. It's a private Discord that she set up as, basically, we're going to call it a streamer safe space. And the way it works is that, you know, we invite streamers that we trust and, you know, network with to be able to share stories, content, or maybe even just vent. Now, there has not been much of any activity. This was kind of a project that we gave up on last year. I wouldn't even say we gave up on it. Just, I mean, we both mutually are probably too lazy to do much with it. Lisbeth, thank you for becoming a member. But it's called the Vibe Shift. The friend Discord I recently left. Oh, Gilded Poo, why did you leave? I want to show you the things that I've written in here because Azria and Jessica Messica have lied about this and have told you, oh, he wrote a whole thread about Hussy. Everything about Hussy, just trashing him, blah, blah, blah. So, I didn't. If you want to take a look, I've written a whole thread on Frogan. I've written one on Just Breezin' today, one on Shanny for Christ, and Queen of Karma, and these are all thorough, okay? These are all, like, thoroughly researched, kind of start to finish stuff. However, there's sometimes smaller topics I want to talk about. For example, Taylor Lorenz breaks David Pacman. For those of you that didn't watch that one, I think I only got like 200 views on it, so you better go watch it, because I love dragging David Pacman. He is the unsung lolcow of politics, I'm telling you. People don't believe me for some reason. But anyway, if you remember in fact, press 1 if you remember this stream. Sky's Burnin', thank you for becoming a member. If you remember this stream, basically, this was about David Pacman getting looped into an argument with Taylor Lorenz and then threatening to sue her. Okay? It's not that interesting, but, like, you know, it's one story, one stream, one and done kind of thing. I also wrote one about the Narc Alert and how she quit streaming. Now, the one that I want to go ahead and do, finally, is the one that Jessica Messica and Azria both read, and they knew what was in it, and also that Azria used on her live stream. Okay? The Hussy witness tampering lawsuit. This was not a thread about Hussy and his life and his career and all this bullshit. It was about one thing: a witness tampering lawsuit. And that's what we're going to be going through tonight. Okay? Hussy the Loser's live. Of course he's live. You saw he scheduled a stream. Of course he went live. So we're going to be talking about the witness tampering lawsuit. But before I get to that, it's important to remember how we got there as far as the witness tampering lawsuit. Okay? So let's go through this. So first and foremost, in 2022 is what I have, Hussy ended up having a fallout with DC Media Girl. Okay? They end up getting into a whole legal thing that I believe that DC initiated, if I remember this correctly. DC initiated it, and then it ended up resulting in a restraining order, okay? Where the two of them were not allowed to talk about each other. Now, what ends up happening is that for whatever reason, and you're going to hear DC explain this here in a little bit, God rest her soul, you're going to hear DC explain this, but what ends up happening is Maxwell decides to file for a breach of contract. I'm sure based on things that Hussy sent to Maxwell. But what's important to realize is that the lawsuit we're talking about was held in Washington, D.C. It was filed on March the 18th, 2024. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link, if you really want to dig into this, I mean, I'm going to cover some basics just to show you what... Oh, I can't even fit the link. Okay, you know what? I'm going to send the link to Kel Doge. Actually, no, I'm going to send it to him later. Okay. But the court case is public, like the information is public, and everything I'm going to be going over is public information. Although I do have something else that might end up becoming interesting. But this was filed on March the 18th, 2024. Remember that date, okay? Because we're going to come back to that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to watch DC's stream. The case would end up being settled, I believe, March the 25th of 2025. I might have that date wrong. March 28th of 2025 is when the case was settled. And we're going to listen to DC and what she has to say about it, because she had a very specific message that I think needs to be heard. So if you're new to Hussy, I very much... That was loud. If you're new to Hussy, I very much encourage you to listen to this, okay? Because this is how Hussy handles his lawsuits, or how Maxwell handles these lawsuits for him.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
And if you want to look it up, let me link it, by the way. Again, if you want this for reference, let me link it. The Hussy case is over. DC Returns is the channel. There's the link.
I know that this is kind of a last-minute stream.
Maybe I should play it like this.
But I wanted to get this out of the way. I seriously doubt that I will be returning to this topic again. I have no desire to discuss this person ever again. Although I might upload some supplemental material in the future. Hello, my darling Negs. How are you?
I am going to speed her up a little bit.
So today, the Hussy lawsuit was officially closed by the court. Earlier this week, we reached an agreement. All parties agreed to it, and today the court closed the case. So as I go forward, I want everybody to get one message very loud and clear. I want everybody to understand what I'm about to say. Astro, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. The decisions that Negs and I made were made for the good of our family, for the good of our mental health. We took no one else into consideration. We could give a fuck less about any other legal proceeding that is going on now, or any legal proceeding that happens in the future involving this individual. We don't care. You're on your own.
Now, for those of you that don't know, the person that she's referring to that was still involved with lawsuits with Hussy at this time is AK. And we'll get to that part in a minute.
We were not about to double and triple down to make a point or to move forward in what was proving to be a very, very costly legal battle that could have continued for God only knows how long. And I know that there were some people out there who were disappointed and were like, oh my God, but you've got the money to fight it. Why aren't you fighting it? Well, because there are much better uses for money than paying them to a lawyer to battle a ridiculous, frivolous lawsuit.
Remember that. There are much better uses of money than Hussy's stupid vendettas.
That is the way I feel. And that is the way Negs feels. So, anybody who doesn't like it can just get the fuck over it. Again, if you're having a problem with this individual now, it is not my problem. You fix it. You move forward and you make a point. I am not the one, and neither is Negs. So, I'm going to have to take you guys back a little bit. And and I am going to have to review some salient points. First of all, this lawsuit was not a defamation lawsuit, okay? Before TMU LawTube jumps in and starts to offer up their ignorant opinions, this was not a defamation suit. This was a breach of contract suit. No contract was breached. No contract was breached. Let me emphasize that. No one breached a fucking thing. Okay? There were a number of allegations that were made that were not true. One of them was that I had disclosed details about the non-disclosure agreement to Sherry. That is not true. My lawyer has proof that that is not true. I had exactly one email communication with Sherry, and that was when she had written to Hussy, because Hussy had said that once the first suit was over, that he was going to reimburse all the people who had donated to his $3,000 GoFundMe to hire Maxwell in the TRO application that I made. Sherry wrote to him. He refused to refund her money. And she wrote to me and she asked me if there was any money involved in the settlement. And I told her, I can't discuss it. That was the beginning. And that was the fucking end of the conversation. Sherry herself came forward publicly in chats and comment sections to state clearly that I had never revealed a word about anything having to do with the agreement, the settlement agreement. In fact, the person who blew the lid off of the settlement agreement was Maxwell, when he put details of said agreement in a public legal filing. It was not me. It was not me.
Now, I was not able to find this information to confirm it. Like I said, I'm mostly just gonna let DC say what she's gonna say here.
I didn't say anything. I don't know where he got this information. But whoever told him was wrong. I never said a word. Not a word. Next point.
Also, I don't know who Sherry is, to be fair.
The vast majority of these lawsuits end up in settlement. That's what we were told. Upwards of 99% of them are settled. Why? Because nobody wants to move forward with this albatross around their neck, spending enormous sums of money on legal counsel. Well, at least we were. I can't speak for the other party. Having their lives grind to a halt and proceed at a snail's pace because the courts are quite slow, and have a lawsuit drag out for a year or maybe two, or even more, given the way that Maxwell emails and files motions and TROs and everything else. Who knows when this would have ended? I have absolutely no idea, and I wasn't in the mood to find out.
So remember that. Maxwell likes to file continuings and likes to delay everything for as long as possible. Because if you're paying out your lawyer, you're going to have to keep paying them until the shit's over with.
So we decided enough was enough. And we are, oh God, would you get the fuck out of my chat? We were in absolutely no mood to find out how long this was going to take. But I can assure you that we were ready. We were very, very ready. And our lawyer was very well prepared with an enormous amount of evidence. An enormous amount of evidence. Now, one of the things that was said was, oh, but when you get sued for defamation or whatever, because people still don't know what the lawsuit was about, you can't go into court and say, oh, but so-and-so did this, and therefore I'm innocent. No. That's not correct. When you go into court, you have the opportunity to present your side of the story.
Correct. Now, Fresh Garbage, does this sound better to you? Because this does apply to you. So, for example, you don't necessarily have to prove whether or not somebody else did something. You do have to prove whether you did something or not as a defendant, for example. Just as an example.
And when there is money involved, when somebody is asking for money, and there was an enormous amount of money attached to this lawsuit, then by all means, when somebody is accusing you of having disrupted their business, when somebody is saying that you are the cause for their inability to make money on the internet, in this case, then you can absolutely walk into court with a ton of evidence and say, actually, there's another reason why we believe this individual is not succeeding on the internet as a live streamer, as a content creator, whatever.
Make sure you're listening.
This is something people don't seem to understand. If you are claiming a loss of income, then there are all kinds of ways to prove that the income was lost for another reason. So, one of the things that Maxwell did was he added in to the complaint issues that had been raised in the lawsuit that was filed against me individually, I guess in 23. Those issues were settled when the lawsuit was closed. Those issues were settled, but for some reason, Maxwell wanted to drag it all back up. Well, he opened a door. What he didn't realize was that he opened a door. And it was a door that we were going to walk through with boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of evidence. I'm going to show you some things this evening. I was going to play some video clips, but I'm not going to because, quite frankly, they're nauseating. They are offensive and infuriating. So I will refrain from playing those video clips. Everything from incredibly sexist, disgusting insults leveled at me personally to all kinds of comments about our sex life, comments about our family, comments about things that were intensely personal. There were so many lies that were told, so many lies, which I won't go into now. If I have to do a part 2, then I will do a part 2. But all that aside, that was all internet bullshit. The thing that we could not tolerate, and the thing that we could not let go of, and the thing that we have been swallowing, the anger that we have been swallowing ever since the first settlement, was the fact that he got away with interfering in our family.
I just wanted to point out very quickly, don't forget who's now the owner of Hussy's channel. Exactly. The fact is, Hussy's channel is not in his name, and the person whose name it is in is also putting themselves up as basically putting themselves into a legal liability with with Hussy continually jumping into these lawsuits, calling the police on people, going IRL on people. He's giving a liability to the person that owns his channel.
He decided that he was going to take it to the next level. He doxed my first husband with the name and the picture. He doxed my other ex incorrectly. It was a failed dox. But he kept on threatening me and saying that he had information about him that he was going to spill. And he was saying that he was going to invite him onto his channel. You know, we've seen this before, right? We've seen
this before. Now, when I heard this again, I really snapped into it, and it was like, he's doing that now.
How people infiltrate your personal life and speak to people from your personal life in order to get views and money and all that shit, right? It's become all too common around these parts. But what we could not tolerate was the fact that Hussy developed a fixation on the kids.
Now, this is where I'm going to have to stop and say something, okay? The first time that I watched this is when she premiered it, but I didn't watch it on her channel. I was watching it on Azria's channel, and Azria had Hussy up on panel at the time, and they were watching it together, okay? By the way, Azria, you want to talk about being friends with Hussy as if you weren't also. But anyway, when he heard this part, anyone want to guess what he did? He pulled out his phone and started texting Maxwell.
He did. I am not.
And by the way, this is why I want to point out Rhetoric. He didn't end up doing anything with this, but I am saying this is why I want to talk about Rhetoric, because he hears certain key words and immediately leaps into action.
I'm not going to characterize what that fixation was. I'm just going to show you examples of what he did to invade our privacy, to throw us off balance, to ruin our mental health, the mental health of everybody in the family, including the kid in question. Now, he started off in June of 2022 when he sent the police to our door over nonsense involving Twitch. It was ridiculous. Now, he didn't come forward and admit that he sent the police to our door. As a matter of fact, as I recall, he indignantly denied it for months. Some of his friends were in his ear, encouraging him never to admit that he had done it. Why did they do that? Well, because it was so entertaining, wasn't it? Watching us go on stream and say sending the police to our door was absolutely out of pocket. It was wrong.
Sending the police to our door. I just cannot emphasize how much, because I had known about that, and like somehow I guess it just wasn't on my radar at the time, because I, like many of the old women in his chat now, saw it and said, Hussy is a victim. Hussy has been pedo-jacketed. I don't blame him for flipping out the way that he does, okay? And maybe I was fucking wrong.
So that they could then go on Twitter and go on their channels and go wherever they were going and say that we were paranoid, that we were crazy, that we were picking on him, that we were out of our minds. And this went on for months and months and months. Those were not pleasant months, trust me, because we were waiting for the other bomb to drop. We didn't know where it was going to come from. As luck would have it, Vicky Vibes was on that phone call that he made to the police. She and Hussy had a falling out that lasted a brief period of time. Vicky took to the internet and she described what happened when he called the police. He didn't just call once. He didn't just call twice. He kept calling and calling and calling and calling and getting increasingly enraged with the dispatcher, who, may I remind you, is a dispatcher for a very, very small town with a massive drug problem and crime problem. And he wouldn't leave it alone. He kept calling and calling and calling. Until finally, and the dispatcher kept on saying to him, this is not something that we handle, basically trying to put him off, right? Eventually, they sent a cop to do a wellness check. That's what the dispatcher finally gave in and said, fuck it, I'll do a wellness check.
A wellness check. Unicorn Girl, thank you for thank you for becoming a member. I really do appreciate it.
Later on, Hussy came out with some story about how he was very respectful when he called the police and how he told the cops that there was an autistic child in the house. Very, very considerate. Well, that's not what Vicky said. Vicky didn't mention that. That never came up in Vicky's stream. Was it an oversight? Well, yeah, during your live, Negs, during your live when, and keep in mind, Negs was streaming twice a day back then. He was streaming in the morning when the kid was in school, and he was streaming in the afternoon when the kid was at home. We always thought that it was quite a coincidence that the police came while Negs was streaming in the afternoon when the kid was home. I instructed our lawyer when I told her the story and I showed her the clip of what Vicky said about the nature of the police call. I told her that one of the plans that we should set in motion was finding Vicky and calling her as a hostile witness. We were going to subpoena Vicky Vibes to testify and see what story she told on the stand under oath. And if the story that she told on the stand matched the story that she told on stream. So yeah, Vicky was Vicky was going to be called as a witness eventually. So there's a little bit of tea for you guys to sip on. Negs and I were going to go bare knuckle on this one. And I spent months and months and months and months preparing, gathering evidence. I had excellent, excellent help from some, by the way, some very unexpected quarters, may I add, who diligently beavered away to send clips, screenshots, all kinds of stuff. And with somebody like him, it's very, very challenging because he has lost so many YouTube channels that trying to gather all the evidence that we were going to present in court was a lot. But let me tell you, there's some very, very determined, very loyal, and very angry people out there who saw what happened and didn't appreciate it, because this went on for a very, very, very long time. And the cameras were rolling and people were clipping and downloading, and they were kind enough to send me whatever they had. So I was like the conduit, screening everything. I've got Google Drives full of evidence of his behavior, of what he did to us, what he did to our family. Now, I know that these days, a lot of people in the community find it completely unacceptable to involve non-combatants and family members in internet beefs, right? At least most of the time. When it comes to us, nobody seems to give a shit. I don't care. I am going to show you what happened. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots. At the time of this,
I just want to add very quickly that these screenshots, because the court or because the case went into a settlement, were never shown to the court. And I just want you to, you know, like I said, I'm not trying to draw any conclusions from all of this. Like I said, this is something that I wasn't paying a ton of attention to, and I just, for whatever reason, magically empathize with Hussy. Like I said, I was wrong. I said earlier, maybe I was wrong. I was definitely wrong about this when I consider the amount of bullshit that he was actually doing in retaliation, whether it was in retaliation or not.
The screenshot that I'm about to show you, Hussy and Tragic were buddies. Okay. I have clipped the screenshot to clip out the picture of the person involved and to clip out other information that was included in this DM because I want to protect that person's privacy. Okay, the gray is Tragic and the blue is Hussy. They decided that they were going to go on the Facebook of one of Negs's kids, a 19-year-old who never once mentioned Hussy's name, never once took to Twitter to get into the melee, never once participated in any of this fuck shit. Tragic went on to the Facebook page. He shared the Facebook page with Hussy in this DM. I've cropped that part. Again, a kid who had nothing to do with any of this, nothing, never participated in any of this bullshit, but they decided to go out hunting. Do we know for sure he's gay? This is what Hussy wrote.
Now, Hussy, you said you wanted me to provide some evidence for that claim that I made, by the way.
Why do you care, Hussy? Why were you so interested to find out if that kid was gay? Well, I know why, actually. I know why he was interested. Because according to Vicky Vibes, what he was going to do was he was going to blast this kid's information all over Twitter. I'm not done. I'm not done. I want to ask Yo Mama something, because I'm going to answer all of his questions tonight. The questions that he was going to pose to me when he was
And I just want to say, Vidal, first of all, you complain about everything, so I don't really care if you think this is one-sided. I just want to say this much. I really am not taking sides here. What I'm saying that I'm wrong about is the fact that I shouldn't have just blind faith believed Hussy was an innocent little flower in all of this. Okay? That's the part that I think I regret through all of this, was pretending like he was doing nothing wrong in all of this as well. Now, was DC wrong in this as well? I think so still. But I'm just saying, I just want to let the woman speak. That's pretty much it.
When he was insisting that I go on his channel, and he demanded that I answer questions about Hussy, by the way. Hussy tried to use the get out of jail free card by saying, well, the kid is an adult. He's a kid. He was a kid who had nothing to do with any of this. Why are you trawling around a Facebook page of a kid who has no participation in this, who has nothing to do with anything? Why? Why? Hussy, tragic. Why were you poking around and trying to dig up information on this kid? And he will say, Hussy will say, oh, it's not a problem because I didn't ever tweet it out. Why were you creeping around on that kid's Facebook? Let me ask you something, Yo Mama, and I want to ask the parents who are watching the stream, and I want to ask the parents who are in chat. If some middle-aged man, a complete stranger on the internet, a complete stranger, someone you've never met, someone you have no intention of ever meeting, somebody who doesn't know you from Adam, doesn't know your family, doesn't know anything about you. If a middle-aged man was prowling around on the Facebook pages of your teenage kids, what would you do? Tell me, what would you do? How would you react? Would you just brush it off? Would you just say, oh, well, it's all just internet bullshit? Or would you get really, really, really angry? What would your reaction be? We got very, very angry. Very angry. You know, one of the things that people need to understand is that court is not your Discord server. Court is not your friend group. Court is not your chat. Court is not your silo, your little hug box that you've set up for yourself. Court involves a judge and a jury. How do you think that parents on a jury, parents, grandparents on a jury would react to seeing this behavior? What do you think they would say? What do you think their reaction would be to a nearly 50-year-old man wanting to expose, let's say, a kid who had never done anything to him, never addressed him, never spoken his name, never trolled him, never contacted him, nothing? And a reminder, by the way, that between the time that the lawsuit was filed and the time that the trial would take place, and now, no, forget the trial, and now, Washington has changed a bit, and so has the jury pool. So is the jury pool. All those Trump people who have moved to Washington are now part of the jury pool. Okay? And I would have been very interested in getting as many of those MAGA people on the jury as possible. So what do you think that MAGA people and parents and grandparents sitting on a jury would have made of that? It would have been quite something, wouldn't it? Sure would have.
Wait, she was trying to get MAGA people on the jury? Okay. Can you do that? How would you know?
This is not harmless internet nonsense. It's not tea. It's not drama. It had a real impact on us, all of us, because he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. Now, a lot has been made of the fact that there were all kinds of pedo insults and predator and all that thrown around. Okay. And the fact that as a gay man, his life was in danger and so on. All right.
Yeah, now this is the part where I do have to say that I do agree with that sentiment. Now, that may be more of a moral thing, okay? That I think that it is worse to pedo jacket LGBT members than it is to pedo jacket straight people. Now, a court may not agree with me on this these days when we live in the age of To Catch a Predator and predator poachers, all this bullshit, okay? A court may not agree with me on this. But again, this was probably one of the main reasons that I empathize with Hussy, is because he's a big gay man in a wig, okay? So, and AJ, I understand exactly why you disagree. I get it, because I don't think that especially these days, that it really fucking matters whether you're gay or not. I think just from a moral perspective, I think where I stand on this is simply that when you have as much animosity fomented towards trans and gay people, that I think it's easier to get away with it. I think it's easier to convince people of this.
Let me show you something. What do you call this? What is that?
I'm not sure if she's about to read it. Hey, you toothless hag. I'm going to leave this here for you so you can be reminded every day that you are dating a pedo. Hashtag negs the chomo. Okay? Now, I understand, like I said, that this was... Look, this is the part that stood out the most to me.
You are dating a pedo...
and to be clear, again, had I known that he was out here doing the same thing, I probably wouldn't have viewed Hussy as much of a victim in the situation.
Negs the chomo. Mm-hmm. Yep. What is Hussy's fascination with the minor child living under this roof? He became weirdly and disturbingly fixated on that kid.
Now, to be fair, doesn't Attic Boy show his son on camera? I don't think that means much of anything.
Fixated. Fixated to the point that he wanted that kid to be removed from the house. He made no secret of it. Made no secret of it. I'll get to that in a minute. What's that?
Imagine being so damn ugly that even way you pay for love, good Lord, Hussy. Even way you pay for love, you can only get a pedo/chomo/bum to date you. Oh, and brag that you're celebrating your 1-year anniversary. P.S. I wonder if your husband knows.
You can only get a pedo chomo bum to date you. Here we go. Again, the P word, right? The P word. Mm-hmm. I've got so many of these. In love with a predator. Look at that. In love with a predator. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Bunky. The other thing about this too, like I said, I mean, we can sit here and say whether one person did it first, the other person. It really isn't going to matter too much at the end of the day who did what first, if this is how Hussy and Maxwell operate. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm getting to the worst part of the defamation, Marcianus. Attic Boy would definitely leave the toothless hag for a child. Child-sized blow-up doll. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that, Apocalypse Punch. Like I said at the beginning of this stream, if you guys came in late, I do not have any evidence whatsoever to support any theory that Hussy is into younger anythings, okay? I genuinely have zero evidence or anything like that. In fact, I don't believe it, okay? I think Hussy is an over-entitled gay man, and like I said, I don't think he's fixated on kids or anything like that. That's exactly why I'm telling you all, you need to watch what you're saying when it comes to Hussy. That is the whole thesis of this stream.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, now we're getting into a whole other thing. You see, Hussy wait a minute, sorry. Let me show you this. What is that?
DC Media Girl in Twitter jail, just like her pedo boyfriend Negs.
What does that say?
I just read it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, here we are. So, Hussy wanted the household investigated. He made no secret of it. I have a recording of a Twitter Spaces that he was on with Vidal and Yotto. Imagine when Vidal and Yotto are the voices of reason, where Hussy said, I haven't called CPS yet. And they were trying to explain to him that this is not what CPS is for. It's not what CPS is for. And he refused. This childless man, this man who has never had kids, this man who has never raised a child, never been responsible for a child, decided that he was going to operate as judge, juror, and executioner over our family, that he was going to invade our privacy, that he was going to traumatize the kid. Now, here, I know this is hard to read, sorry. It's from Crochet and Crime. It says, CPS is to help real abused children who are in life-threatening situations. It's not a tool for you to use to shut someone up online, Hussy. You adults want to do stupid shit to each other, then go ahead, but when you misuse CPS, children die. That is on you, period.
Now, that's the thing about this, is with him calling CPS on Unicorn Girl, when ultimately she did nothing in this situation. Her son allegedly threatens them. Well, her son did threaten them, but her son threatens them, Hussy and Carrie, and he's calling CPS as if that has anything to do with Unicorn Girl's 28-year-old son. And exactly, that's my point, is that it does show a pattern of behavior. Again, I'm not co-signing everything DC's saying here.
To which he responds, what is your definition of real abuse? And she responds, there are children who are being beaten, burned, sexually exploited, starved, and etc., who need a social worker. But when you make false claims, those social workers can't get to the children whose lives are in actual.
Pink Lava, do you have one? I'd be more than willing to listen to it, especially if you have like a clip or something.
Danger. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, Melissa. Thank you for chiming in. And thanks for mentioning that, Negs. The person who got this ball rolling was Black Eye TV. He clipped a portion of one of Negs' streams out of context. I have that clip. I'm not going to play it because, quite frankly, I have seen that clip so many times and it makes me sick and I don't feel like watching it again. In the clip, Negs was talking to somebody in chat. And he was saying that Negs was saying that if he had been the kid's age, and I think that at the time he was 14, and there was unlimited porn on the computer, that he would never leave his room. He was talking about himself. He was talking about himself as a 14-year-old. He wasn't talking about the child living under this roof. Hussy seized onto that and he would not let it fucking go. He would not let it go. And that's when he started his little hissing thing. Oh, what would a judge say? Well, I'll return the volley. What would a jury say, Hussy? What would a jury say? I have so many screenshots and so many clips of you talking about that kid. I have clips of you going on panel to talk about the kid. I have clips of you on your channel, on your Rumble stream, on your Twitch, on multiple platforms, on Twitter, everywhere, over and over and over and over again. Over and over again. And again, his get out of jail free card was, oh, well, it's not a big deal because I never called. Hussy.
Their DMs, Sam and Pink Lava. I can't read that. Sam called CPS, she told me. Okay.
I want you to take a look at the...
So you're saying that Hussy never called CPS on them?
Ethan Klein story. And I want you to take a look at the treatment that people like Denims and others are getting for spreading dog whistles.
Now, and this is kind of what my point was about to be, is that the argument I think that she's making here is simply that when you spread around the rhetoric of, you know, what are you doing with your children, whatever, that ultimately that instigates people to go ahead and do that, to go ahead and call CPS. Similar to how Denims was spreading the narrative that Ethan Klein was, or that his kids were like eating dog shit, something like that. Then people end up calling CPS on him, and Ethan Klein wants to hold Denims responsible for that because of what she said. Press 1 if that made sense. I think it did. Not the same. He had a call. I thought Hussy called for a welfare check. So we know that that's true because I'm pretty sure even Hussy had admitted to that, right? Hussy called a wellness check while Negs was streaming. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, listen, at the end of the day, was any of this a valid reason to call a wellness check, though?
Whistles over and over and over again because they picked up a rumor or a falsehood from a Reddit thread, broadcast it. And you can see in the chat people saying, call CPS, call CPS, call CPS. Do you think that we're so stupid that we don't know what a fucking dog whistle is? Do you think we don't know? Do you think we're not aware? Not a moment's peace. Not a moment's peace. Ever since that man entered our lives, not a moment's peace. And keep in mind that he had palled around and he had teamed up, or he was sucking up to certain channels that had been spreading lies about, certainly about Negs for years, but also about me. Recently, when Negs and I got together, they really went in on me. There were rumors that were being spread that I had, let's say, an impure interest in that kid. That I had moved into the house because I had my eye not on Negs, but elsewhere. Everybody knew what that meant. Everybody knew what that meant. And there were other rumors that that were spread as well. Now, let me ask you something, going back to the issue of, it's very dangerous to accuse, gay men of being predators and pedos and everything else. I guess that when it comes to individuals spreading rumors about people who aren't gay, though, that's perfectly okay, right? You can do it over and over and over and over again. What about when the people that you are spreading those lies about? What about when those people are looking after a minor child? What do you think the risk is to parents when communities are spreading these lies about them? See, Hussy, you don't have kids, okay? You don't understand what it means to falsely label somebody with a kid.
And I want to be clear, this is actually a very fair point because, like, for example, earlier, Saint Ratty, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Earlier, she had said something that, along the lines of how would you feel if somebody was lurking on your kid's Facebook profile, okay? Or what would you do? I can't remember if she said how would you feel or what would you do. How would I feel? I would imagine, again, I can only speak from my own experience, and I don't have kids, okay? Despite these rumors flying around about me having a son named Claire Michael, I don't have any children. And so how would I feel about it? Probably fucking pissed, okay? What would I do about it? I would probably not have my kid on Facebook, to be fair. But again, I really can't speak to this that much. And I think that that's a fair assessment that, like, it might be worth it. Of course, if you see something, say something, but it might be worth it to have a little more discernment if you're not a parent.
With that label. You don't understand what it means when somebody says, oh, he let this woman into the house and she's dangerous, potentially. Right? What happened to you, Hussy? What happened? You lost a few channels because you violated terms of service. You lost an income. Guess what happened to us, Hussy? We got 4 CPS visits. 4. With all these rumors about pedophilia and molestation and bad parenting and abuse and neglect. 4 CPS visits, Hussy. And I am not saying that you called because there's no proof of it. What I am saying is that you participated in a climate where our family was actually put at risk. For real. Not a joke. Not imaginary. We were put at risk. Over and over and over again. 10 CPS visits since 2018. 4 since 2023. 4.
Now, see, I feel like that's where I get a little confused because this wasn't going on back to 2018. You know what I mean? Like, Hussy has, to the best of my knowledge, Hussy started streaming in like 2020 or 2021. So the idea that somehow Hussy was responsible from 2018 to 2023, that part is obviously, I have trouble swallowing that.
And yeah, sure. We were accused of lying about those visits too. We were accused of lying about that. We showed proof, but of course we were lying. By the water carriers, the simps, the, etc. So yeah, 4 CPS visits. What do you think that does to somebody's mental health? What do you think that does to a kid, Hussy? A kid who is a teenager and is fully aware of what's going on. What do you think it does to that kid? What do you think happens when you're going on stream over and over and over again and you're teaming up with other channels and you're spreading this pedo chomo thing around and you have an audience with a sizable number of mentally ill, bored people sitting around, acting like, I'm going to be Captain Save-A-Ho. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to rescue that kid, and I don't know anything about them, and I don't know anything about the family. All I know is I don't like Negs. I don't like her. I don't like the look of her. I'm pretty sure something's going on. Let's get the authorities involved. You created that climate, Hussy. You were part of that. And all of that, Hussy, all of it was going to be presented to a jury with parents and grandparents. And you would have had to sit in the witness stand and you would have had to explain why you took such a keen interest in those boys. I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting that it was some weird sexual thing. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that your fixation, your obsession with our family got totally out of hand. Totally out of hand. You invaded our privacy so many times, I lost count. We sent you a cease and desist in August of 2022. You would not stop. You got worse. You teamed up with MFW, and you sat there while she threatened us, drunk, going off, threatening us over and over and over and over again. And you thought that was hilarious. You sat on panel with her and talked about that kid over and over and over and over again. You wouldn't stop talking about that kid. You would not stop talking about our family. You wouldn't stop. And it made my skin crawl, Hussy. I have so many clips from panels that you went on, and the language that you used was absolutely unconscionable. Again, all clips that would have been played in front of a jury, Hussy, of parents. Not your Twitter followers, not your audience, not your simps. Now, recently, and I have to be very careful about the way I word this, I will be vague. Hussy reached out to one of the parties in the case in Indiana and offered the services of his lawyer to that person. The lawyer, who was nothing to write home about, was at least smart enough not to contact that individual himself. And I have the screenshots, and it is confirmed that that was him on a sock account. What possible assistance could a lawyer who is not licensed to practice in the state of Indiana offer to someone in a case that has nothing to do with them? My lawyer, or I should say our lawyer, looked into possible ways to report Maxwell to the bar over that. The thing is that Maxwell was smart enough not to do it himself. He sent Hussy out to do it. And because Maxwell didn't make the overture himself, there was really nothing that could be done to report him to the bar. But our lawyer was looking into having him sanctioned for it. And we were going to pursue additional we were going to file additional motions regarding that foray into a case that had nothing to do with him, about which he knows nothing. He does not know what the charges are. He doesn't know what the affidavit says. He knows nothing. But he decided that he was going to stick his nose in. And the funny thing is, our lawyer, such a good lawyer, Lou, is really amazing, because Lou pointed something out that had not occurred to me, because I was as mad as a wet fucking hen when I saw these screenshots. And she said, well, the way that the communication closed with this lady telling him to go fuck himself, she said, all that proves is that there are a lot of people out there who don't like him. I said, yep, there sure are.
No, that's true.
She said that she had gone through his Twitter feed and she was absolutely astonished at the language that he was using to berate people, to go after people, particularly women, the language that he would use to go after these people. The way that he would address people on live stream. And then, of course, he's got a whole separate case going on in an entirely different jurisdiction, in which the filing was almost identically written to the filing in the DC case. How many people can you blame because you lost your income? How many people? No, you lost your income because you kept on losing channels over and over and over again. And the more channels you lose, the harder it is for your audience to find you.
And this comes back to what she was saying about the fact that it's hard to prove, and I think she literally just said that, but a loss of income is hard to prove when ultimately you're just ban evading one after another, one channel after another. You're running around and you can't even keep one. And it's important to note about this time was when Hussy was doing that thing where he had like, I think he went through like 15 different fucking channels where he would make one and then he'd get banned a couple days later and then he'd make another one and just over and over again until he finally like, I think that was when he finally was like, fuck it, I'll do Twitch.
It's just in the nature of YouTube. And maybe there were people who were turned off by the way that you addressed individuals. You addressed people. I can't rule it out. All of those insults that were leveled at Charlie Gold, yelling at Vidal, go back to India, bitch. You remember that lovely thing. All of that. There are people in the community.
Press 1 if you remember that.
Who have made excuses for it. I could not give a fuck less about who forgives him, who may on. Thank you, my darling. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Negs, for gifting a membership. That is all up to you guys to work out. It has nothing to do with me. I am not interested in getting involved in your YouTube politics and your reindeer games and, trying to poach each other's audiences. I don't care. But every single one of those clips and screenshots was going to be shown to a jury. Again, to create an alternative theory of why the income dropped. Could it be because you are very indiscreet on Twitter? You are very indiscreet in live streams. You are very indiscreet in the way that you address people. My goodness, No Name. So generous. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is very, very kind. I really, really appreciate it. There is so much that I would like to share that I'm not going to because it's the better part of discretion. He tried to blame us at one point for his attack at a gay bar where he quote unquote broke his ribs. I say quote unquote because whatever. I don't care if he did or didn't, and I don't care if he showed proof or didn't. It doesn't matter. All I know is that the story changed about 3 or 4 times. Okay. He tried to say that he thought that we might have something to do with it, like we hired a hit squad to go after him at a gay bar in New York. No, that never happened. That never happened.
Now, in the similar vein, as people are trying to point out that they don't believe that Hussy made any of these CPS calls, and I believe somebody said it before that aren't these recorded, to which I say, if they're recorded, did you get the calls? You know what I'm saying? So again, when you're in this situation where you have a platform and you're saying things to an audience who is looking to you for an opinion or for even fact-finding, it is important to not foment things that would cause people to call CPS or to call up random bars to get Hussy kicked out of a bar. Again, I don't know who did what in where. Like I said, all I can tell you is that I feel like some people that are getting themselves into lawsuits with Hussy might need to hear some of this.
I also had a smoking gun, which I can reveal now. When he was still palling around with MFW told a complete and utter lie. It was one of the many lies that she told while they were supposedly friends, drinking buddies or whatever. She told him that one time when she was out boozing at a bar, that she met up with a friend of Neggs's, a guy that Neggs has known for many, many, many years. And that this friend of Neggs's had told her quite a tale that was very lurid about some supposed terrible things that had happened between him and Neggs. Okay? Hussy decided that he was going to go on his channel and he was going to repeat this story because God knows it didn't get far enough the first time. And he mentioned the person's name. That allegation was straight up 100% slam dunk, no holds barred, no doubt, fucking defamation. It was a false story. And wouldn't you know that one of the pieces of evidence that I was going to present was an affidavit that this person swore to. This person wrote out. It was a sworn affidavit that they sent me a while ago.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like if she knew that the story originated from MFW, then in that case you would need to sue MFW. And like, especially if you already knew how he got the story. Because at that point, he's not intentionally doing it. He's just regurgitating things. But again, listen, I'm no legal expert here.
That I was keeping under my hat, stating bluntly and plainly that this conversation never took place. It never took place. It was false. Hey, Breeze. That was something that I was going to present in front of a jury, and then you would have had to explain where you heard that story and why it is that you repeated it. I had a lot going into this. I had a lot. Lou was absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of clips, screenshots, and everything else that I brought with me. And I want to close out with one final thing. One of the things that he was trying to hold over my head was that in January of 2024, Crochetter did a live stream. It was a very innocent live stream where he spoke about a couple of topics, and he covered Hussy. Hussy had been coming for him for months at that point, insulting his appearance, insulting his teeth, the usual. And Crochetter, who the last time I checked was a gay man, decided to shade Hussy. I was in chat at the time. Crochetter started by talking about AJ Lair, and I was in chat. And one of the things that happened was that they brought this live stream up as evidence that I had violated the non-disparagement clause of the NDA. No such thing. Absolutely not. I was commenting in chat only when the topic was AJ Lair. When he was talking about Hussy, I was nowhere to be found. I was not chatting. I was not talking. I was not commenting. So, they got mad because at the time, Welfare Wig, remember Welfare Wig, was in chat. Now, if you go into Crochetter's stream now, you won't find Welfare Wig because it looks like they deleted their channel.
No, I will say that I do remember this part. And my understanding, and again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this. My understanding was this is what initiated the breach of contract in the first place, was the fact that she had, I guess, again, I may be remembering this wrong, was that she retweeted Crochetter's stream and he used that as a reason, Hussy used that as a reason to say that, and Maxwell used that as a reason to say that she had breached the contract by retweeting a stream that Crochetter did about Hussy. Right? Press 1 if I got that right. I think that's what I remember. Because I remember I remember this. I don't remember if Hussy brought it up to me or I just read it somewhere. Maybe it was one of the hearings that I watched.
And Maxwell made an issue out of the fact that Welfare Wig had been tormenting Hussy on Twitter, and that Welfare Wig was a threat, and Welfare Wig was this and that, and that, you know, I had quote tweeted Welfare Wig at one point. I'll get to that in a second. And that I was interacting with Welfare Wig. Well, what Maxwell didn't realize was by opening
there, she reposted my stream on Twitter before it aired. She had no idea what I would talk about. Okay.
That door, and by saying that random Twitter accounts who somebody perceives as a threat can be brought in, and they can be used as proof that somebody has violated an NDA or that somebody is harassing you because they're teaming up with some random, you know, anonymous Twitter account. Guess what? Guess what we were going to bring in? We were going to bring in Principal Todd.
The title alluded to Hussy. Okay. See, because that's what I feel like I remember, was that the title did have something to do with Hussy, or again, I have a very fuzzy memory of this, but like I feel like the title had something to do with Hussy, otherwise he couldn't, like, he only showed the tweet. Again, I could have this wrong.
We were going to bring in Liana Fata. We were going to bring in Russ, who for years now has been all over the internet in various places, openly saying that he decided to come after us because of Hussy, because of the way that we had spoken to him, and blah, 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 blah. All of them were going to be brought into it, and their Twitter feeds were going to be brought into evidence. And their presence in chat was going to be brought into evidence. Absolutely, Anna. And our lawyer was looking through these Twitter feeds, and she was like, what the fuck? What is going on here? I said, hey, he wants to bring Welfare Wig and Crochetter into it, especially Welfare Wig, a person I don't know who they are. I've never met this person.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, how do I put this? Todd apparently realized that his only use around here was annoying DC. And after she passed late last year, my understanding, because I saw him say something along the lines of this in Azria's chat, was there's nothing really left around here for me, so I'm going to be retiring at the end of the year. And I haven't seen him at all since the end of last year. Yeah, he said something in Azria's chat. I would have to go find it.
I don't know who the fuck they are. Well, we can bring in Principal Todd, who has gone IRL on us, who has committed doxing, stalking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you guys think that's ridiculous, well, what's the phrase? We'll let a jury decide, right? Let a jury decide. But now there's no need. And by the way, Principal Todd, you caught a break because our lawyer was working on writing out a subpoena to Twitter to figure out who the fuck it is that you are, because you are a dangerous creep. There is something very wrong with you. So now you don't have to worry about it. That subpoena is not being worked on anymore. The case is closed. You're free to stalk and dox another day and go IRL again. But I'd advise you not to. That would be my advice. All I can say is that we were very, very, very well prepared. Very well prepared. And to close out, during the TRO hearing, this was great. The TRO that was not granted. He said that I insulted him by referring to him as welfare. No, I was addressing Welfare Wig. I was not addressing Hussy. I was not talking about Hussy. I was obviously talking about Welfare Wig. And he also said that when I quote tweeted Welfare Wig on Twitter.
Now, to be fair, I have used that welfare insult on Hussy in the past.
And I had a skull emoji, that he felt that that was me threatening his life.
Okay, so I heard about this earlier, which was that apparently DC, I believe she quote tweeted something with a skull emoji and a laughing emoji. Skull obviously means, quote, dead, but at the same time, it's dead from laughter. You know what I mean?
Actually said that in front of a fucking judge in a DC court. He said he felt that I was threatening his life. Now, chat, in fairness, I think that we all know what a skull emoji means. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said this under oath, you guys. We have made it abundantly clear that we have no intention of ever going to New York. We have no interest in visiting that city. I don't even want to go to New York to see Othello, which I would love to see. No.
I want to see Othello.
And I keep on saying, and one final thing. Hussy, you cost me a lot of money. And we're not just talking about legal fees. And honestly, the people that encouraged you to come after, quote unquote, my dead aunt's money that you should have held out until my aunt died to come after me. And then, wow, wouldn't you know it? You came after me. I should send all those people a bill for the fucking legal services that I had to pay for through the nose for the past couple of months. I have not been able to work since this bullshit started. I have not been able to work for two reasons. One is because...
Can I just ask, did DC have a job like outside of live streaming? Because that's where I was confused about this. I haven't been able to work part. Like, I didn't realize she still was holding a job outside of live streaming, or maybe I'm missing the point.
Because of these fucking goddamn lawsuits, these constant court appearances that I keep getting dragged to for absolutely no goddamn reason. And the second reason is that because some people have decided to get way too fucking familiar with both of us.
Yeah, but none of this started until she moved to Indiana. That's where I'm confused. Didn't this start when she moved to Indiana? At which point she wouldn't have had the job at that time, or like I said, maybe I'm missing the point here.
Right? Befriending local.
Freelancing would make sense, yeah.
Goals, going through people's Facebook pages, stalking our former employee, trying to sabotage our business, reporting our Kickstarter. It goes on and on and on. And my biggest fear was that wherever I did manage to get a job, once this shit was over, the little local spies would get back to their friends on YouTube and tell them where I was working. And the Yelp reviews would start coming in if I worked in retail. The phone calls would start coming in. The stalking would start. Sending weirdos into the business. Flooding the business with junk mail, etc., etc., etc. It's not like it hasn't happened before, okay? It's happened before. So wherever it is that I land, wherever it is outside of the attic and outside of the attic underground that I end up getting work, even if it's only part-time, it will be in a position that is not a public position. It'll be some sort of an office position where the likelihood that somebody will find me will be very slim. But Hussy was half of the reason why I was unable to earn a living for all this time, because of this lawsuit, the motions, the TRO filings, the constant communication with the lawyer, all of it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Maybe she was talking about the attic.
He prevented me from
Cute Stoner Boy Productions
working. He was part of the reason that I could not work. So you cost me money. You think you lost money? I lost money. I lost a lot of money. And now it's over. So now we can get our lives back and we can go on to the next thing. But for all the people who conveniently left out the part where he called me a pedophile, he called me a pedo lover, he called me a pedo enabler, he called Negs a pedo, he called Negs a chomo, believe me, that sample of screenshots is a drop in the bucket I have sent so much stuff to that lawyer, so much stuff, and it was all going to come out in court. So you want to sit there and you want to bellyache about, oh my God, my life as a gay man and blah, blah, blah. But you felt that you had the right to call us those names and team up with people who were accusing me of having an inappropriate relationship with a kid that I adore and I protect with my life, and force CPS visits. That's what happened to us. That was part of what happened to us. All right? Yep. Anyway, thank you, No Name. Thank you, my love. I appreciate you buying those memberships. I really, really appreciate you guys. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to all of you for being here. And I'm not stupid. I know that people showed up. It's a drama stream. People love drama streams. People have been very curious. So now going forward, when people give you their opinions, their uninformed, ignorant opinions about what happened in this case, at least I got the word out first. And now I am going to clear the floor and clear the deck. And I'm going to let Negs have at it. I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you again for your support. And I will see you the next time.
All right. So, like I said, I'm not here to say DC's right, Hussy's wrong, whatever. I simply wanted you to get an experience from I simply want you to hear what she states her experience was. Okay? With respect to getting involved in a lawsuit with Hussy, as also some people have pointed out, and I pointed out at the beginning, is that she did initiate this whole thing. Obviously, they were both slinging pedo back and forth, and which I don't think is right in either situation. And the idea, to me, that Hussy was calling the police over and over again just to get some satisfaction. Again, it's all reminding me of the things that Hussy does today, okay? And like I said, I think he purposefully instigates these things just to get people to say the worst shit about him so that he can immediately run and call Maxwell. That is my opinion. Now, one of the things that Hussy likes to say over and over again is that he won all 3 lawsuits against Negs. First of all, DC is not Negs, so I'm not totally sure if that's what he's referring to. But the important thing to note here is that Hussy has not won a single lawsuit. That is because Hussy has made sure, well, Maxwell has made sure every time that these lawsuits end in some type of a settlement, generally an undisclosed settlement. So it's hard to know exactly what happens. But there was one case that was settled. So do you remember I told you the date? March 18th of 2024, okay? And I'm just telling you guys, nobody's gonna like any of this stream, and that's okay. That's totally fine with me. I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop anyway. March 18th, 2024, 10 days before March 18th, on March the 8th, Hussy started his lawsuit against AK. For those of you that don't know, that's Hot Discord Rejects, AK, part of the Bodega, that whole thing. I'm not going into that whole case because that's not the point that I want to make here. The point that I want to make here is that there was one case that was actually heard by a court and dismissed, and Hussy lost. And that would be a witness tampering case that they filed against AK. So, give me just a second. Let me just skim through this very quickly. So on September 10th of 2024, Maxwell would submit a witness list to the case against DC, okay? What ended up happening was AK, and I'm not sure who else was on stream with her, so I don't want to quote anything with this, but I know AK was on stream, and they pulled up the witness list in the case against DC, okay? So they pull up Hussy's witness list, and they basically say, we're gonna fucking harass everybody on this witness list. For lack of a, I'm paraphrasing here, but they basically go through everybody on the witness list. They pull up their streams, their channels. They make some insulting comments and shit like that, okay? What ended up happening was that Maxwell decided, we're going to sue AK under the DC case for the crime of witness tampering. Now, the important thing to understand here is that witness tampering, as I mentioned, is a crime. It is not a civil matter. It is a crime. The other thing to understand here is that this would have been outside of jurisdiction. This lawsuit in particular was filed against, was filed against AK as if she was part of this DC lawsuit. And I say DC lawsuit not because DC Media Girl, but because this was held in a Washington, DC Superior Court. Bear with me here. So on May 30th of 2025, the judge held a hearing for a default judgment. AK never responded to this suit in any way, basically saying, I have nothing to do with this case. I'm not going to respond to it. So Maxwell files for a default judgment. Now, normally with a default judgment, you are pretty much waiving your right to defend yourself, meaning that 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the case, okay? Or the plaintiff is going to win the case because the defendant has no argument against you. The problem was, like I said, witness tampering is a crime and not a civil matter. So here's what ends up happening. Maxwell decides that he's going to copy and paste everything from the March 8th case against AK in Maryland. He's going to copy and paste everything and throw it into this DC lawsuit against DC Media Girl and say, this woman has engaged in witness tampering, despite the fact that the majority of the document had nothing to do with witness tampering. Now, there is a video of this hearing. I, to the best of my knowledge, have not been able to determine whether or not I could even play that for you. So I'm not going to play that for you. But I promise you that video is going to come out. Maybe some Canadians can watch it. But what I do have for you is the judge's ruling. If I can remember how to use my goddamn computer. So a default was, and now we are going to read this. I'm sorry, it's reading time, and I ain't got no funny voices for you tonight. A default was entered against the defendant on February the 21st, 2025 for her failure to appear at a remote initial scheduling conference. The her would refer to AK here. The defendant did not file, and is the defendant. She did not file a motion to vacate default within the requisite 2-week period, nor has one been filed to date. DC Superior Court, whatever, C, provides that to have a default judgment entered in her favor, the plaintiff must no more than 60 days after the default is entered apply to the court for a default judgment either by motion, da-da-da-da-da. This actually isn't that important. Procedurally, the plaintiff has satisfied all of the requirements, the plaintiff being Hussy, for a default judgment to be entered in his favor. The court now turns to the merits of the plaintiff's claim. At an ex parte proof hearing, Hussy testifies on his own behalf. The underlying dispute in this matter pertains to a series of instances in which the defendant, an online content creator, made derogatory comments about the plaintiff and his acquaintances on her YouTube channel and other online streaming platforms. Hussy, the plaintiff, also an online content creator, alleges that the defendant's online speech makes her liable to the plaintiff for damages in excess of $300,000. In his complaint, the plaintiff alleges that a series of instances in 2023 in which the defendant ridiculed his appearance and made allegedly false declarations about the plaintiff's lewd conduct with children and others. This had nothing to do with what they thought they were going into court with. But because Maxwell just copies and pastes things, this is what the judge thinks they're there to hear. At the ex parte, however, the plaintiff presents testimony and evidence narrowly focused on the defendant's public comments made about individual plaintiff identified in his September 10th. And by the way, I noticed that this is a typo. This should say September 10th, 2024. The plaintiff identified in his September 10th, 2024 witness list. At the hearing, the plaintiff admits 3 pieces of evidence, videos identified as exhibits A, B, and C. The content of the videos was thematically the same. Each video was an excerpt of the defendant's YouTube channel and showcased the defendant making insulting remarks about the individuals that the plaintiff had identified as witnesses in this matter. The plaintiff did not present any evidence supporting his allegations of defendant's 2023 remarks about the plaintiff, nor did he testify as much. When he was asked how the admitted videos of the defendant verbally attacking the plaintiff's identified witnesses affected him, the plaintiff said he was fearing for his life and that these videos have heightened his depression and anxiety about proceeding with this case for fear that his witnesses would not want to testify on his behalf. Spoiler, the witnesses never had to show up. The plaintiff indicated he was seeing a therapist but failed to produce any documents supporting his assertion that he has sought medical intervention for his anxiety or depression. And I'm telling you guys, the video is so fucking funny. The video is so fucking funny because Hussy's like all nervous and like trying to figure out, he can't answer a straight question. And the judge asked very direct questions for things like, proof that you're seeing a therapist. And they had nothing. They thought this was all going to be about witness tampering. Look, she's witness tampering. But the bottom line is, AK ultimately had a First Amendment right to talk about a case that she was not involved in because she had nothing to do with this. And ultimately, this was just a cash grab at the end of the day for a pair of $300,000. The plaintiff requested judgment be entered in his favor against the defendant for tortious interference with the prospective advantage, civil harassment, cyber stalking, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, what you might not notice in there is witness tampering. Do you know why witness tampering is not in there? Because as soon as the hearing starts, the judge says, witness tampering is not tort. It is not a civil matter. If you wanted to file witness tampering, that's a crime. You would need to file that in a criminal court. So that's why witness tampering isn't even listed here, is because the judge wasn't hearing it, and ultimately this is what sank the whole case. They weren't prepared to show literally anything else. And you would think Maxwell would know this, but you know, he's the lawyer after all. At the outset, the plaintiff presents patently frivolous claims for the torts he refers to as tortious interference with the prospective advantage, civil harassment, and cyberstalking. Ultimately, a position is frivolous when it is wholly lacking in substance and not based upon even a faint hope of success on the legal merits. The counsel has cautioned that attorneys have a continuing responsibility to make an objective appraisal of the legal merits of a position, asking how a reasonable attorney would evaluate this, whether a claim is truly meritless or merely weak. Indeed, frivolous actions waste the time and resources of this court, delay the hearing of cases with merit, and cause parties unwarranted delay and added expense. That is not something, if you're a lawyer, that you want to fucking read. Point A, tortious interference with a prospective advantage. The plaintiff does not define what qualifies as tortious interference with a prospective advantage, nor does he cite any statute, case law, or secondary source to opine on the same. From the complaint, the court construes that the plaintiff's claim as asserting that the defendant breached a duty to plaintiff by allegedly intimidating potential witnesses in this matter, in that it could affect the potential witnesses willing to participate in the trial. Had defendant caused plaintiff's identified witnesses to be made unavailable for the trial, the proper recourse for such conduct does not include a private right of action. Plaintiff has not identified any duty owed to plaintiff by defendant that bars her from publicly discussing people he may or may not intend to call for a trial, nor has he identified any reasonable damages to support the $300,000 that he seeks for the alleged breach of this undefined duty. Accordingly, the plaintiff has failed to prove for tortious interference with a prospective advantage. So, what this means is that, as I mentioned before, AK was not involved in this case. AK had a First Amendment right to talk about this case. Now, if the people that were on the witness list felt that they were being harassed by AK, they may have a case against AK. But Hussy has no grounds for suing her for this. There's one part in the video where they pull up a picture of Belinda, and they're making fun of Belinda. And Hussy says something about like how, you know, she was losing weight and she just took this picture today and she felt amazing about herself. She thought she looked great in this picture, and they were so mean to her, and it just keeps me up at night. Oh God. All right, point B, civil harassment. Plaintiff requests for civil harassment, stating under the definition of civil harassment, a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses the person and serves no legitimate purpose constitutes civil harassment. Plaintiff, however, does not cite where he obtained this definition, nor does he identify case law, a statute or any secondary source to support his assertion that the plaintiff is entitled to $300,000 he's requesting for the defendant's alleged liability. The court has attempted to identify the source of the plaintiff's purported claim for monetary damages for civil harassment to no avail. The plaintiff has not identified a relationship between the parties that would raise a claim under the D.C. Human Rights Act, nor has he indicated that he's seeking injunctive relief. Civil harassment alone does not amount to a viable claim for monetary damages in the district. Accordingly, the plaintiff has failed to prove his claim for civil harassment. I feel like that should be pretty straightforward. Basically, they have no grounds on even defining Maxwell had no grounds to even define civil harassment, and nothing about this would apply to civil harassment to Hussy. Hussy can't sue on behalf of these people on his witness list. C. Cyber stalking. In contrast to the above claims, the plaintiff has identified a statute under which he seeks $300,000 for cyberstalking. The plaintiff alleges that the defendant violated D.C. Code 223133 by her use of threats and intimidation via electronic communication. However, D.C. Code 223133, as counsel should be aware, is a criminal statute for which there is no private right of action. Accordingly, the plaintiff has failed to prove his claim for cyberstalking. So in other words, again, the judge is saying, cyberstalking is a crime. We don't do that here. To succeed, now, Part 2, the plaintiff has failed to prove that the defendant is liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress. To succeed on a claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress, or an IIED, a plaintiff must demonstrate that 1. Extreme and outrageous conduct on the part of the defendant, which 2. Intentionally or recklessly 3. Causes the plaintiff severe emotional distress, as in Armstrong v. Thompson. Yeah. A defendant's conduct must be characterized by malice under an IIED claim. It is not enough that the defendant has acted with an intent which is tortious or even criminal. So in other words, they're giving him the most levity on this part. And still, the conduct must be so outrageous in character and so extreme to degree as to go beyond all possible bounds of decency, and to be regarded as atrocious and utterly intolerable in a civilized community. The requirement of outrageousness is not an easy one to meet. The plaintiff's complaint alleges a series of instances in which the defendant and her friends continuously and repeatedly insulted the plaintiff online. However, at the ex parte hearing, the plaintiff did not testify to this behavior, nor did the plaintiff present evidence of these alleged insults. Exhibits A, B, and C were video excerpts which the defendant publicly insulted individuals who the plaintiff identified as potential witnesses. Although he expressed that he experienced extreme depression and anxiety as a result of the defendant's conduct, he's failed to meet the high bar of proving that the defendant engaged in utterly intolerable behavior. And I just want to say, for those of y'all that don't like AK, I know I don't like her, she don't like me. Even a court didn't find this to be, what was it again? Utterly intolerable behavior. So, for as vehemently as one might oppose the statements the defendant made on her YouTube channel, the defendant's unflattering characterization of the plaintiff's witnesses falls short of demonstrating outrageous conduct and is more akin to an insult or a threat. Okay? Indeed, in Walden v. Covington, which the plaintiff himself cites in this complaint, the court concluded that mere insults, indignities, threats, annoyances, petty oppressions, or other trivialities were insufficient to find an IIED. Accordingly, the plaintiff has failed to prove that the defendant is liable for IIED. Judge Maribeth Raffanin. So, again, I mean, I come back to the fact that if you are going to come out here and call Hussy a predator, a pedo, whatever, you do so at your own risk, okay? You might end up in this situation where where Maxwell can't even manage to win a default judgment. But do you really want to take that risk? Because it's very hard to lose a default judgment. Okay? Like, the fact that this happened is actually somewhat impressive to me. That somehow Maxwell was able to lose a motherfucking default judgment. Or do you go DC's route and you try to hang in there as long as you can until eventually you get browbeat into fucking settling? Because ultimately, it probably would have been cheaper for her to settle earlier on, if I'm being honest. I would just rather not call him a pedo or predator, if I'm being honest. But like I said, I don't know you, Hussy. I don't know what you do. All I can do is watch your content, look at public records of court cases that you went on and on and on for years about, gaslighting your audience about quite a bit of the details that you didn't want to share. Because you goddamn know Hussy ain't... Well, he can't address this because he's got an RO on AK as far as I can tell. They've got an RO on each other. I don't know what that settlement was. But they're clearly not allowed to talk about each other. Pick your poison, I guess. But that's mostly what I wanted to show you guys. Like I said, if you choose to continue this rhetoric, you do so at your own risk. And when it comes to Blaze, I know that Hussy, because I have a feeling he doesn't want to bother Maxwell for a fourth lawsuit, he said earlier today that he wants Blaze to make an apology. And like I said, if you saw the clip at the beginning of the stream, I don't know if that's going to be the apology that's going to really work. But Blaze, feel free to DM me if you get a chance, and I'll be happy to write up some shit for you. He might not love it, but it'll be an apology. A full-throated apology. And yes, definitely keep records if... Oh, good lord. Did y'all just get... Oh, it didn't happen on y'all. I just got fucking... All these fucking messages just popped up right here. I don't know what happened. Alright. I'm shitting up my own chat now. Anyway, that's it, guys. That's all I had to say about all of this, okay? Any questions? Any questions? Stop shitting up the chat. Yeah, no, this program, you know, I was telling you earlier about this program, bragging about it, and it's like not working as well as I want it to today. It's been quite wild today. Can you bottle your titty grease? Ani gave me a recipe for making it, and I might. Waftcast is about to go live, is that right? Kel Doge, Everything killed. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, look, and I like I said, I don't feel like I'm gonna please anybody with this stream at the end of the day. But you know what I don't want to continue happening? I don't want these stupid lawsuits to continue fucking happening. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for this shit. Hussy needs to grow up. But at the end of the day, he has a right to do what he's gonna do. And I you know, that's America for you, I guess. But like I said, I just would not advise continuing this rhetoric if you've been engaged with it. And that includes the word predator, okay? I understand somebody can be a financial predator, but I would just steer clear of it, you know? I'll give you a good example. For example, I regularly have no problem. Listen, he's going to talk about QP, and I actually want to hear about this because I haven't been paying attention to this QP situation. Oh, look. We're monetized now. Awesome. What was I saying? Oh. For example, with Shani and Rev, I will fucking put their videos up and I will play it with no fucking commentary, no nothing, and I'll just let their videos play. Why would I do that? Isn't that against fair use? Well, sure it is. But do any of you think Shani has the time to fill out a form? She literally brags about having a fear of paperwork, you know? So that's another thing, is that you always need to understand who you're dealing with in these situations. And when Hussy has such a lengthy history of being litigious, tread carefully. That's my point. You know? Shani and Rev are one thing, but Hussy's a whole different beast. She doesn't have money for a lawyer. Well, Hussy didn't have money for a lawyer either. My understanding was that Hussy just started calling up a bunch of lawyers until he found one. And I'll be honest, I bet you money Maxwell thought that he was going to be like all over YouTube, all these people talking about him on YouTube and how he's defending this poor innocent, you know, faux drag queen. You know what I mean? Like, I have the feeling that when when Maxwell was initially presented with this, that's kind of where he was like, oh, like, you know, this is going to be a whole thing. A YouTuber? Whoa, you know? And then you end up with Hussy, you know, who was like 20 viewer Andy at the time.
I go by the name of Dr. Potty.
Dr. Potty. Okay, I don't know if this is copyright, so I'm going to go ahead and raid the Waffcast. Maxwell is punching air right now. And like I said, I'm sure that if you haven't seen the hearing from the witness tampering case, I'm sure you'll see it. Anyway, I'm out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate y'all coming through. And thank you for your support. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And I hope y'all have a great rest of the night. Oh, by the way, I have a stream scheduled for tomorrow, Hussy's Best Friend Race. I may reschedule that one. I haven't decided yet. I don't know if I have the time or energy to do all the research I need to do for it. But we'll see what happens, okay? Jan is in my chat. Maybe you need to be subpoenaed. All right, listen. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a great rest of the night.